Guy tone in here now for the segment.
Big sales. How we feeling?
Why can't people see these things?
Because their emotions are tied into it. And look, let me not exempt myself. I'm a part of that as well, right? I'm constantly going through this internal battle of trying to keep my fandom at bay and try to more so assess these situations objectively and from a business perspective, right? And I can understand why people look at it the way they do, though. So I try not to kill them, because it's the old adage: they know not what they do. So overall, the way the Philadelphia Eagles are structured, you said it best, right? It's not. This isn't if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty, this isn't a coaching issue.
Mm-mm.
This is a control issue.
Mm-hmm.
This is a dynamic issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, if we want to be honest, we honestly don't really know who Nick Sirianni is, or what he's capable of, because he's been under the thumb of what the Philadelphia Eagles front office and ownership want to happen on that football field.
Didn't
And
you learn more
that's my
about Doug
problem.
Peterson in Jacksonville than you did about Doug Peterson in Philly?
Of course, because first of all,
And Andy in Kansas City.
You can learn a lot about somebody based off the situation they're in. And seeing Doug in Jacksonville told you flat out he's a good coach. Period. He knows how to bring the best out of guys. He found a way to rebuild Trevor Lawrence when Urban Liar could have destroyed one of the best prospects we've ever seen.
Jags back-to-back winning seasons. You're trying to turn around a shit box.
Right. And then granted, their second half of the season kind of went similar to the Eagles. Kind of just fell off.
Quarterback was injured,
but the quarterback was out with shoulder, neck, foot, hip, ankle. He's been like Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, man. I don't know if he needs a better offensive line or if he needs to get rid of the ball quicker, but he got destroyed this year.
All of it.
But again, it's the Jags. To be able to have the Jags relevant like this,
right?
So that's a job in and of itself. But yeah, overall, the Eagles' job, it can't be the most appealing because, and I said this to Rob earlier, they really can't afford to go in the market, the head coaching market. They really can't afford it. As much as I'm not a Nick Sirianni fan right now, as much as I can nitpick his, what he does well and what he doesn't and what he brings to the table, the Philadelphia Eagles can't afford to go into the market again for a head coach, because what precedent does that set that you actually haven't already set? You fire guys that have winning seasons, you fire guys that win Super Bowls in 3 to 5 years. So how is that an appealing situation for anybody if you fire Nick Sirianni? So you can make an argument they'll be better served keeping him.
Yeah, well, like I said, the Atlanta job's a better job. I mean, the Eagle job shows you if they fire him. And by the way, like I said, you and I and a lot of people that are around the organization, we see what happened. We kind of know, we hear, we listen, we talk to some players. We're kind of more at the door. We're not inside the locker room.
Yeah, we're
kind
adjacent.
of at the door.
We're adjacent. We're like,
yeah. And the rest of them are kind of like 30,000 feet watching it and going, wow, this guy's really got a winning record. He's 3 years in a row. And that's how most people are going to look at this. And for me, if I'm on the outside and I'm an NFL coach or a prospect to be a coach, I'd be like this. So shit, you're trying to tell me if I have a 670 win percentage and I go to 3 playoff games, I put a team 12 months ago in a Super Bowl and I win 11 games. Albeit we had a meltdown, I'm getting fired. Dude, I'll tell you what, you dilute your job when you do that. And what that does, it diminishes that job going, well, shit, what kind of job title is it? Is it a cheerleading job? Is it a management job? Remember something. It is more of a department head job than it is a coaching job. You're like the head of a department, like a sales department or like a CPA department. You're not really a coach. You're kind of Tone. And this is going to lead me to the question I want to ask because I opened the show with this. The question that owner is going to ask, in my opinion, is this fundamental question. Hey, in 22, we gave you all the tools, and here was the game plan for you to go succeed. Here it is. Why didn't that happen in 2023? He's got to answer that. And if he answers it to the best of their ability and his ability, he'll keep his job. If he doesn't, this is the mousetrap.
It's all a trap, really.
It is.
If you really want to think about it, he's not really going into those meetings with a leg to stand on. He's going to have to answer for some things that are going to be really hard to answer for. And he's going to have to answer for some things that he may not have had an answer to. But this is when it comes to being a head coach and knowing how to navigate. There's a lot of pressure on this meeting, and it can go awry really quickly.
In his responses.
Yes, in his responses. Because here's the thing. Nick has to ask himself this. What do I want out of a head coaching role? Am I comfortable just being a figurehead? Or do I want more impact on what we do? And then now that begs the question, okay, what has been his impact thus far? And if they're going to take more away from him at this point, then what is he?
There's nothing to take away. He's just got to show he can execute their plan for him to keep his job. It's not about power here. Remember, stay away from the power end because he'll never have it in that building because control is the number one thing they're not going to allow, or Denard Wilson would be your D coordinator. This comes down to how will you execute our plan? What is your strategy on executing the things and the tools we give you what you did a year ago? And this is why I say in that meeting, when he talks to the owner, you better not come out of the gate firing about what happened in 22 because you lose your leverage right away at the front end of the conversation. You need to take accountability on what happened right now, why it's not working, how we have to turn this thing around. Then you drop the nuggets. Look, I'm your guy. We did this a year ago. I showed you that we can execute the plan, albeit it fell apart at the end. We still won 11 games. But with the assets of Howie and all the things we have in the analytics people and everyone else around him, I believe that we can right this ship and we're going to go in a positive direction. If he answers like that, he keeps the gig. Now, if he says this, well, here, I have one question for you and here's the most important question too, Tone, and I think he has a right to ask the question. What went into the decision to fire Sean Desai? Because in my opinion, Tone, that direct decision lost the locker room.
That's fair. That's very fair.
To me,
Rob agrees, by the way. Rob Ellis agrees.
If you look at the defense, personally, I don't think it was players didn't want to play for Nick Sirianni. I think players didn't want to play for Matt Patricia. And I thought that bled over to the offense. And I think everybody in that locker room saw exactly a coach, head coach, not fighting for his assistants, not standing up for him. Because, and by the way, isn't it funny? Nick didn't stand up for Sean Desai being fired, and Jalen hasn't stood up for Nick in 5 days. I think it all goes hand in hand. You know what I call that?
You know what I call that? I call that self-preservation.
Hand in hand with what happened in that locker room. And I tried to figure out, and I was trying to tell you guys how a locker room, one dynamic can send that thing sideways.
Right.
Any little tiny thing. It's a freaky room. And I think right there, you had the kid now get an e-scope. You had guys saying, hey, I played the sticks. You had another guy going, it was like having 2 wives. You have Hassan Reddick going, hey, I'm just told what to do. They didn't want to play for that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, Nick is going to have to.
It was that.
Right.
And Nick's decision not to defend Desai, because you know why? He doesn't have the leverage yet. If he went, I'll tell you this.
If he wins that Super Bowl.
If he had won that Super Bowl and beat Kansas City, he'd have fought for Desai.
Of course.
I'll say this point. If Desai's still the DC, you beat the Bucs in that first wild card game.
I'm willing to argue if he's the DC, we beat the Cardinals, we beat the Giants. I'm willing to argue all that. So, Nick is going to go in these meetings, right? And I think he's going to he obviously he's going to have to come in with a game plan, right? But the dynamic between Howie and Jeffrey is interesting because we all know Howie has Jeffrey's ear, but I also think he's been evaluated as well.
Oh, yeah. I think there's a meeting between him and the owner, too, coming up.
Right. So likely, I think Nick is going to go into these meetings and play ball. That's what I think is going to happen. I think Nick is going to go into the meetings. I think he's going to play ball. And I
Tony, he
think he's
got the
going to
job playing ball.
right. And I think he's going to continue that, right? You know, sometimes turbulence can lead to people, you know, they start leaking oil, you know, their emotions start getting the better of them, right?
Yep.
And I think that's going to be his challenge, right? In these meetings, trying to keep that personality a little bit at bay. Win the meeting, retain your job, worry about everything else on the back end. That's how I'm looking at it. If it's me, I'm a firm believer. Make sure you get the job before you start barking opinions. You know what I'm saying? Denard Wilson, get the job first, and then start making your little tweaks.
Yeah, no one wants to hear your ideas, Denard. They want to hear why you want the job. This is what I would do. This is what we need to do. And I'm like, that's not gonna help you in getting that job with those guys.
Tell them what they want to hear.
That's right.
And then feel your way around the room when you get there.
Isn't that a shitty way to get an NFL job? You got to bullshit your way to get the gig.
It's the shitty way to get any job.
You know, if I'm an owner, I actually don't want a really good interview. You know what I mean? I want a guy to go in there and almost be a train wreck. And at least I go, at least he's genuine.
Right. I feel you on that, man. I feel you. You know,
because if you have a guy walking in going, hey, I believe in everything that your organization is doing, and I know the structure you have, and hey, you've been really awesome to your players, and look at the facilities, they're unbelievable. Right. Why wouldn't anyone want to
all that ass?
I'd be like this, hey, dude, you know what, man? I mean, if you want to walk around on your knee pads, I mean, you haven't even been handed them yet.
Listen to this. I asked, we had Dave Zangaro on the show earlier, and I asked him, what do you think would be the first question Jeffrey Lurie asked Nick Sirianni in his meetings? He said the first question he could potentially ask is, why couldn't the team culture help you navigate these rough waters? Right now, I want to ask you, what do you think would be the first question that Jeffrey Lurie asked Nick Sirianni the moment that meeting starts?
I think the meltdown's the first thing. And and get this. Here it is, Tone. And this is, do you keep the job? Do you answer this? Well, when we made the move to put Desai in there, and he says we, remember? He could say you. And if he says
words matter, he got to say we.
We. If you want here, watch this.
Everything is we.
If you want to be combative, when you guys made the call to move Desai out of coordinator, or when we made the move at coordinator, nobody on defense believed in what Patricia was doing. Mm-hmm. And everyone in that locker room, it deflated them. Tone, it all coincided with one another. Because after that, didn't all the games look the same?
Sure did. They looked the same
lost
to the
locker room with that was a bigger move internally.
That was a bigger move than we gave it credit for.
And what they thought it was going to be.
Do you think we
didn't make more of it either?
And that's what I was about to ask you. Do you think we underestimated the weight of that move? Because I know I did. Yes. I know I did. Because at the time, I think we all were like, well, they're not playing well. Okay, that we can understand the change. I think our biggest disagreement was the timing of it. Why are you making this change at this point in the season?
But then you started hearing the players eking things out. Mm-hmm. Hey, I played the sticks. Hey, I played what I'm told to do. Hey, it's like having two wives. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm just out. I mean, you're hearing the guys talking and then having to walk much of the shit back in the week about how things weren't. And get this. You think there's any coincidence they went to two-gapping and your run defense went to complete shit? And then your pass defense even got worse? That after a while, the players were like this. Jesus criminy. Not only was it a poor fundamental move, but it was a poor structural move. Even the offense went like this. Nick didn't defend him.
When I saw Matt Patricia, this is when I knew, okay, we screwed up, right? And it was in that Seattle game. When I saw Matt Patricia line up James Bradbury over their rookie wide receiver, Jackson Smith-Njigba, on the game-winning touchdown with no safety help, I was like, oh, we fucked up.
Do you
We
want to hear
screwed
it?
up.
You want to hear it?
So Desai would have never did that.
Hey,
Desai
you
would
wanna
have never
hear
did that.
something? You want to hear something what players would say walking over the sideline after that play was like this? You walk over the sideline, you sit down, you sit with your group, your D line, your linebackers, and your DBs. You sit there, man, and I'm telling you, you know what you're doing? You're talking under your breath like this. Why would we do that? Why would
No
we do
safety
that?
help on a
Why would
rookie with
we
fresh
do that?
legs.
And then you're hearing people all up and down the bench saying shit like that. Why would we do that? I'm telling you, man. I mean, you can't fool these pro guys. Dude, they pick up on all those tea leaves. I'm telling you, Tone, because the whole structure of the leadership went away when decide. Okay, decide they not look the Niner Cowboy game. To me personally, you know what I think the casualty of the Cowboy game was? I think the Niner game cost you 2 losses. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
It cost you 2 losses. Okay. There's no excuse for Seattle, Arizona, New York. There's just no, and really the Bucks. There's just no excuse for that. And every game looked the same. I think they became deflated when they saw their head coach didn't defend one of their own, a guy who they had been in it with the whole time, put his ass on the line. And get this, I personally think those players in that locker room, especially defensive players, I think they all just went like this. Hey, man, remember something, Tone, with all those faces over there and all those guys over there, those guys weren't playing for the Eagles. They were playing for their NFL careers. And when you're putting me in a bad position not to succeed, there's a chance I put bad play on tape because you put me in a shitty position. You think Zach Cunningham and Nicholas Morrow worrying about being an Eagle? Man, they're worried about being an NFL player next year.
Let me ask you this. I was talking to John McMullen about this last night, and he believes the Super Bowl window for the Philadelphia Eagles has closed. What's your thoughts on that? Because, and again, his reasoning is based upon they have so much to do on that defense. They have so much to fix. They basically need a whole defense.
Well, hang on.
Yeah.
What do you think the landscape of the NFC is going to be?
And I think now, I'm glad you said that. Detroit obviously got better.
Okay.
Green Bay is going to get better. The
I
Rams,
think Dallas gets worse.
The Rams are going to get better. I think Dallas gets worse. I think the Eagles, they aren't showing any signs of getting better. So how can I say they're going to get better?
And
right?
they're older in key spots.
So Lions are getting better. Green Bay's getting better. Rams are getting better. I don't know what the Bucs are going to do beyond Baker Mayfield, but overall, there are 3 teams.
And you don't know what Atlanta's going to look like if Belichick gets that job.
Exactly.
Because if Cousins goes down there, he could change that dynamic overnight down there.
Some competent quarterback play with those weapons and that defense and the crappy division. Yep, you're absolutely right. Literally, the NFC is going to get tougher. It's going to get tougher, but I
still want to see who Detroit is.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
I want to see them. I think Brad Holmes, the GM, and all those guys are doing great.
Brad Holmes, he did his job. He did his job. Brad Holmes, the job.
Right.
He did his.
Now it's about going out and fulfilling your destiny. What's going to happen? I think Minnesota is going to be an interesting look too. So here's where I'm going. Okay, so the NFC we're going to assume is going to be better than it's been the last 2 years moving into 24. Okay, where are the Eagles in that? Well, dude, there's a ton of replacements over on the defensive side. They don't have to really do anything on the offensive side still, but you have to have a course change in how you handle that quarterback. And the defense is going to be a very interesting remake. Now, let's do this. You look at the NFC and now look at the NFC East. Are the Giants going to get better? I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
Is Washington? I don't believe so. Depending who's hired and what they do at quarterback.
Will Seattle or New Orleans get better?
There.
What about Seattle, New Orleans? Do you see Seattle, New Orleans getting better?
If Dan Quinn gets that job, which I think he will get that job, Okay, if he gets that gig, it's going to be really what they do at quarterback. Are you going to go into 24 with Geno? Or are you going to start the process of looking at another guy coming up in the draft and trying to trade up to get a quarterback? Are you going to, new coach, maybe you want to go new. It's a great organization. John Schneider is really a great general manager. And he's really a good one. Seattle's going to be a 9-win team. Okay, San Francisco's not going anywhere for 2 years because of Purdy's $870,000 contract.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the Rams are going to get better. The Cardinals clean house, but it's the Cardinals.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not there. New Orleans, what will New Orleans do? I don't believe in Dennis Allen. I think
I don't believe in Derek Carr right now either.
Well, here's what I'm going to say happens. You ready? I think what happens is Dennis Allen gets out to a bumpy start. John Gruden's named the interim head coach because he's going to be named the OC. That's why they fired that guy Carmichael.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he becomes the head coach interim, takes him to the playoffs. He gets the head coaching job there. That could change that dynamic around a little bit.
Absolutely.
I just, in the North, the Bears have to make a decision on Justin Fields. You know, the Bears are stupid. They think they're going to get a first rounder for Fields. You're not going to get more than a third rounder for him.
You're not getting a first rounder for him. You'd be lucky to get a second.
Yeah, right. And I think more of a third. And if you're going to get Caleb Williams, okay.
I see. I'm not bought into the whole Caleb Williams hype.
I'm not either.
I'm not. And look, I don't mean any harm. I don't know the kid, but to think, I don't look at him as just the savior like everyone else does.
Who did he beat?
And I don't watch college football like that, but
he beat.
I'm not sold on.
I mean, he couldn't win his own conference, and I mean, I don't know. So again, back to the Eagles. Their Super Bowl window. You know what, Tone? Have they ever?
Because there's a difference between being a playoff contender and a Super Bowl contender. It's a difference.
Have they ever had a Super Bowl window outside of the Andy Reid era?
It was presumed that they did. Presumed. That's a good question. Have they ever really had a window? Because a window implies you have more than 2 or 3 years. So have they ever really had a window?
Did you think you had a Super Bowl window with Wentz?
Me personally, I believe the window was, well, here's the thing, right? This is what they always say, or I heard this before. When you got a guy like Josh Allen, you always have a Super Bowl window, right? And the question becomes, is Jalen Hurts that guy?
Well, I think if they don't win this game against Kansas City this weekend, I think they got to blow that thing up there. Okay,
you know,
if not, I mean, blow it up where you got to start thinking about bringing some people in there to help the kid run the ball more, get another receiver, some more guys on defense. I know they're banged up injury wise, but you're not. How many more years do you think you're going to keep that window open? Say, look at Kansas City, what they did. Kansas City took a step back to take 5 forward in the next 5 years. I've told you, they got rid of the wideout. They rebuilt the defense. They expanded the kid's window.
Okay.
Because they've got a better defense and they're going to add some components. Kelsey's aging. They'll probably add somebody there to get depth at tight end and they'll get depth at wideout. That's going to be an easy fix in KC.
Because they bit the bullet and they weren't afraid to trade Tyreek Hill. Now,
and they still won a Super Bowl biting the bullet.
Right. And let me ask you this, right? What player on the Philadelphia Eagles do you think they need to bite the bullet on and maybe leverage to get some more assets? No one talks about it like that. But who do you think the Eagles may need to bite the bullet on?
I might dangle AJ out there.
Wow. I was thinking more so. I was thinking about dangling Hassan Reddick out there.
Okay. If you're
because the contract's coming up.
Let's make this look as in women.
Okay.
If AJ is Sierra and Hassan Reddick is Jennifer Lopez, who you calling first?
Can I call him on a 3-way?
You can do anything you want on a 3-way with them. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh,
Hey,
but you know
I
what?
think you get more. I think you get more phone calls with AJ.
You know, you would. No, you know, of course you would. You would. He's younger. He's a wide
But
receiver.
how
You know,
detrimental then is that towards Jalen's
Jalen,
development?
which is right,
So you got to be
which is
cognizant and
why
careful of that too.
right. So that's why I don't know if AJ would work. Him and Hurts are kind of tied at the hip now.
You got to make me want to pick the phone up too, Tone.
Yeah, that's true.
I love when people always go, "Hey, Trey Penny and this guy," and I'm like, "Penny, are you crazy, man? You couldn't call me on an old payphone with that guy to pick the phone up. I'm not picking a payphone up with that dude. You
Right,
got to
right.
make me want to pick the phone call up and go, because what are you looking for? Are you looking for a one?
That's a good point. What are you looking for? Are you looking for a one? I don't really know. I was just picking your brain because I'm looking at I'm looking at Kansas City, and they basically, like you said, extended their window because they bit the bullet on offense and they wanted to build that defense up. But they also have a quarterback that clearly has shown an ability to carry you. I don't know if
Let's pump the brakes for a second, though. Do you trust Howie Roseman to make those corrections in the draft with those picks?
That's a good question.
Or do you go see? Don't you trust him more in pro?
I don't trust Howie with. I'll be honest. I don't trust Howie with defensive draft picks.
How about this? I don't trust Howie with draft choices, but I trust him with pro personnel.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Job.
I think that's a fair take because
because
he hasn't proven.
Clay has been a great Eagle.
Right. He doesn't have a proven track record of hitting it. Like, he doesn't have a consistent proven track record of hitting. He's not consistent. You know what I'm saying? Especially on the defensive side. He does well with O linemen. He does well with D linemen. Devontae Smith was a slam dunk, the best wide receiver he's ever drafted by far.
He backed into him. No, well, wait. No, they took him instead of taking.
Well, remember they wanted Surtain, but
that's right.
He got picked up by Denver.
That's
so
right.
They traded back with Dallas.
And Dallas ended up taking the homie from Penn State. By the way,
right.
I'll take Devontae Smith over Micah Parsons any day.
Now I would. I remember you asked me that like last week or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. Yeah, now I would. Shoot, man. Micah did not show up in that game. He was nowhere to be found. Did you know Jordan Love?
End of the season.
Did you know Jordan Love wasn't sacked once in that game?
Dude,
not once.
And I think he had one pressure. I'm sorry, but there's
no way you got DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons on your edge, and you didn't hit him once.
And it's not like the Packers are a frontline O-line.
Exactly. So yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. I want to ask you about Jalen because, Nick Sirianni aside,
5 days, dude. He has said nothing.
Right. But I'm talking more so about on the field.
Okay.
I think, me personally, I think he has a lot of work to do this offseason because.
What's the number one thing he's got to work on, you think?
I don't think he hits the middle of the field enough. It's so much real estate he doesn't take advantage of in the middle, between the hash marks. It's so much real estate he doesn't take advantage of. His passing chart came out from that Tampa game, and they were comparing it to the passing chart of other quarterbacks that were in the playoffs, that week. Almost all his throws were outside the numbers, outside the hash marks. He does not throw which tells me it's by design. Exactly. Which tells me it's by design. Either they don't trust him to throw across the middle, or he refuses to throw across the middle. It's one or the other.
Those are lower percentage completion plays on the numbers.
But if you want to be considered an elite quarterback, you hit those. And that's that's the crux.
Let me tell you how I would fix him.
Okay.
You've got to kind of take a Ben Roethlisberger mentality with him because of his athleticism, and you need to use it. Dropping him in a 7-step, in my opinion, if you look at him fundamentally and he doesn't really like, or they don't like him throwing across the middle, they need to move him around more in the pocket for him to create passing lanes. Because what that'll do is also keep that Mike linebacker in more of a in more of a spy and keep him there instead of dropping. If you move him around, the one thing Roethlisberger used to do exceptional, Roethlisberger didn't really like to get up the field, but he would move laterally and he would create passing spaces and he would open his wideouts just by his head, by his feet. And you could create passing lanes doing that. They got to use his athleticism more, move him around more. He likes to go to his right. All right, move him around to his right a little bit more. Put him on the hash over there. Let him move around back there a bit and let him slide, set his feet, and then create passing lanes. I also think that what they need to do, the one thing that I don't like how they approach their schemes and how they approach their passing routes. I mean, dude, go underneath, hit underneath. 5-yard passes can lead to 10-yard passes. Don't be afraid of your special teams. Brady did that forever. Brady was not a plus 25 guy. Why in the world would you try to turn Jalen into something that doesn't result in winning championships when a guy who showed you how to win championships and multiple championships? To me, I'm going to use a fundamental. Let Jalen make the easy passes. Let him get the easy passes. 5-yard pass, 10-yard pass. If you start saying this, Sills, he's a check down bitch. Great. Josh Allen's turned into a check down bitch and they have lost one game. They're 6-1. I mean, that's what this game is, because why? The linebacker position in the NFL is not as talented as it once was. Dude, places like Baltimore and San Francisco, and when they're healthy in Buffalo,
they're outliers.
Places are novelties.
Yeah, they're outliers for sure. Yeah, you're right.
You're 85% of the time you're going to be going against people who can't cover. You need to figure out how to give him not the explosive play, but the easier play.
Let me tell you this, right?
Make his life easier for him.
I got something for you. Rob told me this stat earlier, and it blew my mind. Did you know A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, when it comes to yards of separation between them and the defender, did you know all three of those guys are ranked at the bottom of that category at their respective positions? A.J. Brown, you would think with his talent, he would be top. He would be at the top of the list in terms of yards of separation, but they're not. So what does that tell you? That tells me these guys have been producing in situations where their coaches have not put them in positions to get open. They've been getting open. They've been getting open on talent alone. Can you imagine? One-on-one. Can you imagine if Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert had a coach that knew how to create separation for them?
Can you imagine if Kyle Shanahan was scheming the offense of the Eagles?
I think the Eagles have – if you had the right person in the building, the Eagles would probably be the hardest team to defend because of the combination of –
a year ago.
Yeah, the Eagles, with that combination of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, because of their skill sets, they are easily the hardest personnel group to defend. They're so hard because they have a combination of power, speed, route running, hands, being able to catch the ball at the top of the catch point. They have such a wide scope of skills between those three guys. They are arguably the hardest guys to defend in the NFL if utilized properly. They have not been this year.
Look at the Bucs offensive coordinator who's a candidate to be a head coach. Look at him, how he got those guys open. I mean,
think about Green Bay.
Bay.
I watched that Green Bay Dallas game from beginning to end. The windows, the space that these guys were able to create was astonishing.
Yeah,
and none of those guys are as talented as A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. None of them.
You're not utilizing the skill set of your own players.
If you told me you had, listen, if I told you.
So you're telling me A.J. Brown's got 1,600 yards on one-on-one pass routes. Can you imagine if he actually had like the guy in Miami? He might get
Exactly.
2,500 yards.
Exactly. So look, if I told you, yeah, your team on your offense, you have Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata. Oh, by the way, you got Landon Dickerson, and then you got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and you got an up and coming quarterback in Jalen Hurts. He's still raw, but he's very talented. If I told you that was your offense, what do you think I'm expecting you to do with it?
I would say this to you: there's only one offense in the NFL that I would say is better than you, and that's the one in Kansas City or the one in San Francisco. That's it. And in some areas,
and the margin is slim.
Slim, paper thin.
So how do we get here? Someone is not doing their job.
It's one guy.
One guy.
It's the owner.
Mm-hmm. They're in their own way. They're in their own way.
Okay. If Nick stays, and by the way,
I think he is going to stay. Honestly, I think he will.
I'm telling you, if they fire that coach, that job will become a leopard job.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter what you do, it doesn't matter.
What if they give him every opportunity to keep that job in those meetings, but he just talks himself out of it?
They don't care. Tone, do you really think they think that head coaching job is a really big priority job? Or do you? I think they believe
based off their decisions, they don't.
I think they think it's an important job to get their message out.
Right. They look at
that winning.
Yeah,
I don't.
They look at the head coaching job as an extension of them.
Let me show you how insulting that job is. You're doing your job, Tone, and you're doing a great job. You're 10-2, had a couple bumps in it. All of a sudden, your boss comes in and fires one of your right-hand men without even telling you. Says, hey, we're firing this guy. I want you to have him walk in, and you're firing him, by the way. And he's a guy who's produced for you. And you got to have a conversation, and you're being told to fire him. And you're still fighting for home field and the NFC East.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to fire somebody. Oh, by the way, don't kick him out of the building. Put him in the box and put him in the Howie box. And, but you have to do it. How insulting is that somebody would come in and knock on your door and make you, when you're trying to balance the ship and you're trying to steer the ship out of rough waters, that they make your waters even tougher by telling you to do something you don't want to do, but you're going to do it because you have to do it or you don't keep the job. That's insulting.
Now we see why Doug left. It's insulting.
It's insulting. The Eagle job's an insulting job when you have someone parachute in. And by the way, like I heard you say with Rob, really, man, if you wanted to make it seem a little bit cloak and dagger, get to the bye and do it. You could have given yourself 2 weeks of smoother waters to talk to the players and all of that. But
especially when you already
made it so much tougher.
It made it even worse. Like when a report came out saying, yeah, they were already talking about it back then. So why didn't you make the damn move? Why wait until you're in the thick of seeding and starting to lock in with the playoffs? Why wait until you get to that point? Why set your team up for failure at that point? If you didn't make the decision when you first thought about it, don't make it later on. And all of a sudden wait for him to face the Niners and wait for him to face the Cowboys and say, oh yeah, he's not good at his job. Last time I checked, his defense did okay against the Dolphins when they were at their hottest. Last time I checked, his defense
Chiefs at home.
Beat the Chiefs at home. Shut them out in the second half.
With Kelsey and Jones.
Exactly. So it's just for him to accumulate that stretch of some level of success, and then for you to just off him for 2 games against 2 of the hottest teams in football after your team is coming off of a game where they played 100 snaps. Come on. At that time when they blew out and did all that shit to Sirianni, he was 24 in the regular season. He was 24-4. And you parachute in
and you tell him to have to fire somebody coming off of an emotional game like that, going into the Cowboy game, and you tell me if you don't think that have rattled and upset the entire locker room. Get this.
When they already were questioning their confidence at a loss.
24-4.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You know, it's so funny. When you really couple everything together, they lose to the Niners. They begin to start questioning their confidence. They lose to the Cowboys. They begin to start questioning if they're even a playoff team or a Super Bowl contender. Then they lose to the Seahawks. But before that, you fire Short aside. You literally pulled the rug from under your team when they were at their most vulnerable.
Yep.
And they literally imploded.
But get this, they didn't respect you enough to see it.
They didn't respect you enough.
Howie and the owner didn't respect the Sirianni enough to not upset the room because they thought they were more right than upsetting the room. Fuck the players' mentality. They didn't care, Tone. They only cared about what they thought they knew was in the best interest.
Wow.
Tone, tell me, listen, if they had shown guts in any other game after the Cowboy game, we'd all go, I don't know, Sills. They did battle in this one. They didn't battle in one game after that.
Sure, they didn't at all. At all. No battle, no fight left. And I think you said it earlier, right? They stopped believing. They stopped believing. You know, but part of me still
stop believing and stop trusting.
Yes, that's what you said. Trusting, right? They stopped trusting. And
tell me if you don't think that this coincides with this. Well, and this is where maybe Jalen has an ass with Nick here. Wow, Nick didn't support Desai. Why should I support Nick? Because
that's a good point.
How about this one, Tone? Because if I support Nick, that means I'm not supporting the locker room. I think Jalen may be looking at it like this. I want to support the locker room because we all thought that was a poor move. Nick didn't support Desai. See, we may not be looking at this right. Jalen may be looking at supporting his teammates because everyone in the locker room probably, everyone kind of talked about it, how they didn't think it was a good move. Everyone's hinting at it. Everyone's kind of, it's funny. Everyone's kicking the can down the road a little bit on it, but they're bringing it up. And so Jalen's like this. If I support Nick, that means I'm supporting management in the decision that they did with Desai, and everyone in that locker room didn't think it was the right move.
And I get it. I totally get it.
That locker room, that locker room is not a microcosm of society. That locker room is some of the craziest, like you said earlier, alpha dudes. I mean, some people have great personalities. Tone, some have none. Some people you cannot mess with, some you can. And you got to know the room. And if you don't know the room, well, then you better get in there and find out what the room is. But see, they didn't give a shit. Nick knew the room. And as soon as that stuff went sideways, all the games looked the same. Nobody trusted anyone. Nobody believed in anyone. And nobody wanted to play for Patricia.
Yep.
They did not believe in Matt Patricia. And I'll tell you, Slay, too, getting the surgery, the microsurgery, the scope, and all that, they didn't want to play for him. Hassan Reddick was doing this. You're dropping me in coverage. I'm just doing what I'm doing. What
I forget what game it was, but after that game, they kept asking him certain questions. He was like, I don't know.
Doug, no one wanted to play for him.
He was just straight. I don't know. I never heard.
Now, look, this is my opinion, and this is my take on it.
I don't think it's off.
Do you really think those guys wanted to play for Patricia? And here's this: they have the worst defense in the National League since he took over.
They didn't want to play for him in Detroit.
Any coincidence to that?
They didn't want to play for him in Detroit. So clearly, there's a disconnect between him and his message and players. It's a clear disconnect.
He's not a player's coach.
He's not. He's a
And that was in Detroit.
He's married to his system. He's married to his X's and O's.
No, he's not. He's married to Belichick.
Yeah, Yo, it's a rumor that he might be going with him to Atlanta.
He better, because that's the only place he'll get a gig.
No, I think you're right.
Philly. You think they keep that guy?
No, hell no. As a matter of fact, on the defensive side, I know we talked about Leslie Frazier. Who else are you interested in?
Well, that guy in Michigan, because he worked with both Harbaughs, Minter, I like him. I don't think the Georgia guy will leave because he makes $4 million.
Mhm.
Tenard Wilson.
You think he would consider coming back here?
Tone.
Well, you said matter of fact, you said it yesterday. You said don't take things personal.
Yep.
And what else? You said don't take it personal and don't burn bridges. Don't burn bridges. And hey, listen, money.
Hey, the scratch makes a lot of things go away. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, listen, you're right. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Hey, you know what, man? I'm really upset with the way okay, I'll give you an extra $1.5 million.
Oh, okay.
Everything's better.
Hey, let's go to dinner. Let's go to dinner on me. Let's have some fun tonight.
Hey, how about this? Like Deshaun Watson goes, I'll never play in my entire life in Cleveland. Never. Where's $230 million guaranteed? What time are you flying me down, Jimmy Haslam?
Right.
I mean,
oh yeah. By the way, I would love to go to the Cleveland Children's Hospital. Whatever you want. Yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Jumping out the window for Cleveland.
Hey, whatever you need me to do, absolutely. So, dude, and listen, I'm teasing you guys.
Right,
when you guys are talking about blitzes and this, and I'm going like, man, this is bigger than that.
Oh yeah,
this
for sure.
is going to come down. Are you playing ball or here? I'll make it simple. Are you playing ball or not?
That's really what it comes down to. It comes down to, are you going to play ball or not? And he's already
simplify it, Tone. Right?
Yep.
Hey, man, are you in or not?
Are you in or are you out? sounds like a mafia movie. Are you in or are you out? Are you in or are you out?
Hey, this isn't like the Salvation Army. When you're in, you're in. You don't get it. There's no retirement pay. And you don't get to go to Florida, okay? You don't get to go to Florida when you run a family and you're a captain. You understand that?
Right.
There's like, 401k policy. The only policy we have is canceling dudes. And we could cancel your ass easily. And so, like, you're either in or you're not. I told you I had an uncle that used to do this. And I would go, my grandfather would go, get away from that guy. And I go, why? Uncle, when he goes, yeah, I go, what are you doing? He goes, yeah, my watch. I go, what do you do for a living? He goes, I cancel policies. Got to get in that hole.
I cancel policies.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
my
telling
goodness,
you,
man.
Tone. So look, here's what I think he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
He's watching. John Madden, I said it earlier on the show. John Madden told me something years ago. Yeah, you want to watch all the rats come to the top right now. Boat takes on some water. All the rats start coming to the top, Tone.
Mm-hmm.
You see the rats. And the ones that come to the top that don't jump off the boat, those are the ones you go to sea with. He goes, but when boats take on water, rats come to the top because everyone's looking to jump off the ship. And right now what he's watching is he's watching how Jeffrey is watching how Howie, Nick, the players.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Jalen's. You know what it reminds me of now that I'm thinking. Jalen's staying under the bullets.
He's a smart dude. Listen, he's not. He's a well prepared dude. I tell people all the time.
Oh,
man,
dog, look at me. Watch this. That's a thing.
Right. When he said that, I was
man.
like, when he said that,
kid,
I was like, oh, okay, really, Jay?
Like
I was in my mind. I'm like, Jalen, you could be a little bit more inconspicuous than that.
Try to be a little more coy than that.
Yeah, come on. He was like, oh, wow, I didn't know he was going anywhere.
Yeah, okay.
What do you mean you didn't know?
Dude, you got $250 million in your bank account. You ain't dumb. You're a corporation now.
Listen, $250 million. You know what? Oh yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea.
Hey, I guess you want to pull dumb athlete out when you need it, and there it was. I was like, come on, man. But guess what?
No.
He's not a very good liar.
Of course not. But here's the thing.
Hey, so what do you think of Nick Sirianni? Well, you know what, man? I like everyone in the building, and I really have a lot of faith in everyone in the building. I don't really know if that's the answer.
Exactly.
That's the lawyer's answer.
Exactly. Look, like I say it all the time, Jalen is a very calculated individual. And here's the funny thing about it. That answer was actually on brand. It was on brand. But the circumstances obviously make it worse than what it is. But that's a typical Jalen Hurts answer, if we're being honest with ourselves. It is. It's on brand. And it made me laugh because I'm like, Jalen, you know damn well what's going on right now. And you can play dumb all you want, but at some point, you're gonna have to answer something. Because
do you think the owner, do you trust the owner to do the right thing? John Ritchie goes, this guy's a great owner, man. This guy here, he's
No, I don't. I don't because 30 years won a Super Bowl. 30 years won a Super Bowl.
Coaching position serious. Do you think that that's been the reason they have not won multiple Super Bowls is because they don't empower their coaches?
Well, Andy was empowered to the brink. Andy was controlling personnel. Andy was controlling the draft.
That's when he was a young owner, though.
Yeah. Right.
He was learning about control. Because look at Jerry. Jerry was more worried about the business aspect of getting the Cowboys out of bankruptcy. You see, that's why Jimmy won. You know why? Because when they took the Cowboys over, they were losing money. Do you know the Cowboys were losing like $1 million a month? And Jerry had to turn that thing around business-wise. He got the Pepsi logo on the field. He was so in, but when that was fixed, that's when it became the meddling. When he put his structure in, Lori, being a young owner, coming out of the Norman Brayman thing, trying to change the direction of what the fans thought of Eagle football. You've been spoiled because this guy's been a really good, structurally sound businessman on how he got that thing turned around. You know what he did? Hey, we're going to do the one thing that Norman Brayman couldn't do. We're going to have not only strong defensive fronts, but strong offensive fronts. And we're going to invest in that my entire time in ownership. That's what's kept him competitive and in the game, is not the fact that he's had top flight quarterbacks, but he's had top flight lines. Dude, that 17 season, I said this, it's got to be one of the greatest combinations of depth and O-line and D-line I've ever seen.
Yeah, at that time, yeah.
I mean, they were just over the top sensational.
Definitely.
But that's a structure that was built that way.
So you think, because like two coaches in a row, Andy and then Chip, he clearly empowered those two people.
He did.
But then after Chip, it was almost like he got scarred. You know what I'm saying? It was almost like he realized the fault in his decision. And you know how like you get treated so bad in a situation where it kind of makes you skittish in other situations. I think that's where he is right now.
Well, I'm going to tell you one more time.
They were beat down so bad by Chip's presence. I think it's made them skittish in terms of power, structure, control, all that.
And I think that's a flaw in his approach.
Agreed.
Because to me, when Edison was making the light bulb, someone asked him, what about it? He goes, well, I found out 2,000 ways not to make it. And so can you imagine if a guy all of a sudden got skittish in an approach on trying to create the light bulb, he would have quit. Well, exactly. I think you got to keep adjusting, figuring it out, keep reinventing yourself until you get to yes.
And I think that's the problem.
I don't think you bail on something and you quit on something. And to me, I think look at the coaches. They quit on their coaches.
Do you trust Laurie to reinvent himself? Because also keep this in mind. He's setting it up for his son to take over. Do you think because he knows his son is going to take over at some point, it's more important for him than ever to establish a sustainable trend?
See that right? See what you just said right there? That's the one thing that's missing. That's the one thing that's missing in his ownership is that sustained success is not there. okay? And I mean championship. You know, I mean, it's one thing because you can quantify it and dissect it and go, well, Sills, they win 10 games. They're the best team since 2000 in the NFC East. They've won more playoff games. That's all well and good if that's your mountaintop.
Yeah, that's all well and good if you're trying to talk to some investors, but that's not good when you're trying to sell a fan base.
How about this? Is it a good performing stock, the Eagles? Yes. Is it a blue chip stock? Yes. In the grand scheme of the NFL? Yes. You know, you haven't, like I said, you haven't had a losing coach since he's owned a team. I mean, there's levels of success. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Tone, I got to take a timeout because we're going to get our girls from the Delaware story in here in a couple minutes.
Yes, sir.
And I want to take a timeout here. So let's take a timeout. Hit the like button. We'll reset everything. Keep it here on the National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.